mean, oh man, I don't know. I got a thing with textures. I don't know if I
So
could do that.
yeah, which was the best one? Like, what was the best?
Honestly, man, so my girl's amazing. Like she's really good at cooking, man. She's really awesome. But I was like, look, I can't eat shit, so don't worry about it. So she got a crock pot and shredded chicken thighs. And it kind of cooked it in its juice. So it was shredded chicken thighs, and then you would blend that with rice. And it was amazing. That was it.
Huh.
And I put butter. So imagine. It's almost like imagine like chicken flavored grits, but smoother.
Okay. I was thinking like casserole type. Maybe if you threw like a little, but no, not really casserole. Huh.
But I mean, yeah, no, it's more almost like the consistency of grits, but not grainy. Literally like mashed potatoes.
Wow. Then that's the new unlock when you're trying to do
Brother,
your hypertrophy, Alex. There you go.
I'm
That's
telling
a
you, man, I would eat, and within the, I mean, I'd eat, bro, and I eat 4,100 calories normally. I would, I actually lost my wisdom teeth, and I gained 7 pounds. That's how like diligent I was about my food.
Wow.
Um, which was, yeah, dude, I know I was fucked up. Um,
That's impressive.
but it's just think about it. A lot of the calories you waste is digestion,
Yeah.
and it just breaking down that food, making it, into this kind of mush, and you're doing half that work already. So, bro, within the hour and a half, you can eat another meal, no problem. It's crazy how easy.
That's
Like
what
I
I
was
was wondering.
starving.
Like, it doesn't last as long, right? Like,
They was hungry. Like I look when I eat 8 ounces of chicken and like 12 ounces of rice, like about 2, 3 hours. Okay, I'm eating. Sometimes I eat because I have to, and I would get up and I'm like, I'm fucking starving. My girl's like, are you serious? I'm like, yes, please help me. She's like, okay, but none of this shit after. I'm like, damn. I'm like,
Hey,
thank you, my teeth coming out.
you've been unlocked though. You can't go back now. You're just like
Nah, man,
I'm hooked.
she's fucked. She knows it. I'm like, here, it's over. Blend everything.
That's
oh,
awesome.
like the clean bulking hack.
It
Has
makes
to be, right? Has to be the biggest hack we've found. That's cool.
because think about how like eventually like next year when I get on stage, chicken breast and rice, but that sucks. You know how it is. Eventually, it's like it sucks. You can't add. And another thing, I laughed. I was talking to my when you add the condiment to it, like whatever. I have this curry ketchup, this vegan curry ketchup. Since it's a pudding, and like it really absorbs it. So you can. It's not like you have to add it every fucking bite because it's a piece of chicken breast. I'm like, when I'm eating chicken breast and rice, like I don't see the problem of literally boiling chicken in its own juice, blending it in like whether it's like a stock or whatever with rice. It's pretty much the same macros. I mean,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
It almost
I'll see myself doing that.
the crock pot, we do the crock pot a lot and just let it sit. So I wonder if the crock pot would make it like soft enough to where you could almost just throw it in and start blending it like that. So now I'm gonna
That's
try. Now I'm gonna try.
Bro, I'm telling you, man. I mean, I get the bison one. I get it because it looks unsettling. It's like
Oh yeah.
brown,
Oh yeah.
but it still was great to me. I loved it. But the chicken and chicken thighs, like it's just so clean.
Have you had
So
bison, Alex? You ever done bison?
Like, have I ever eaten bison?
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
of
how
course.
do you
I
make
was
your
just
background blurry like that?
curious.
There's a little thing where it's video. You
Mhm.
can go to blur background, the arrow on the video.
Technical difficulties.
Oh my gosh. Whoa.
Oh,
Okay.
damn.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Okay, this is awesome. That's it. All right, thanks a lot, guys. I'll see you all later.
That's
Yep.
it.
See ya. Thanks. Appreciate it. Good
We
looking out.
got we got the chicken. We got the chicken and we're done. That's it.
That'd be the
That's all
best
we
5 minute
fucking need,
podcast
boys.
ever.
That was the greatest 5 minutes of our entire
You're welcome,
existence as a
Internet.
podcast.
I was like,
Well,
man, go
yeah.
ahead, Nathan.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, Michael, you can go ahead and tell these wonderful people who you are, and I've already started recording because I was like, I'm not gonna
Oh,
miss out
wow.
on the chicken, on the blending the
Well,
chicken. So
thank God I didn't say anything crazy. Well, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you guys, Nate, Alex, for having me on this awesome podcast. I did do my research. I like the way you guys present yourself. So, first of all, thank you. I never take an invite anywhere lightly. If anyone can listen to me for more than 10 minutes, I think it's an honor. And I remember listening to Dave when I was in his podcast that if people choose to listen to you over Google, it's nothing you should ever take lightly. My name is Michael de la Pava. I was born here in Miami. My family's from Colombia, so we keep it spicy. I own the Battleaxe Gym, and I've been owner, head coach for 11 years. I've been in the fitness industry for about 15 years, and I've been a competitive athlete for about 14 years. Since then, online coaching for about almost 10 years when it was like in its baby phase. And I've done a bunch of different sports from, martial arts to rugby to almost all strength sports except Olympic weightlifting because I'm just not mobile anymore. And here we are, man, pushing through. I just turned 39 a couple months ago, and I'm on my path to try to get on the bodybuilding stage before 40, which was a goal of mine from a long time ago, but it just aligned right with my life. So we're pushing.
Yeah, I was looking at your page and I could kind of tell like this guy has literally done it all. I feel like he's done it all. So what kind of got you into the fitness world in general? Like how did you kind of get started and what kind of pushed you in that direction?
So I always give thanks to my first real coach and mentor and great friend, Wesley Carroll. He played for the NFL. He played for the national champions back then. He's a phenom. When I tell you that he's an athlete, but a really fucking tough guy. He was my Muay Thai crew, which is also known as it's the Thai word for coach. When I came back from college, when I came back from university at Penn State, I was fat basically, and I had done martial arts since I was 14. And he kind of gave me a great challenge. He said, "Do you want to fight?" I said, "More than anything." I was maybe 23, 24. He says, "If you can lose, I don't remember. He says, if you can lose 50 pounds by the end of the year, we'll put you in the ring." And I bet I'll lose mine first. It was like, you can't challenge me, especially at 24. I'd do anything to win. Even now, it's a problem. But I started losing weight rapidly. I mean, I really took it seriously, training in the morning. Once I lost that weight and I started really marrying myself into fitness and training, I really fell in love with what you can do if you dedicate yourself. I was always kind of a chubby kid, and why I developed some sort of personality in the first place. But for the first time in my life, in my early 20s, I felt like my body reflected my hard work, and I fell in love with that. And I felt like I can help other people do that. And that started why I said fitness and not strength and conditioning, because my first gig was at 24-hour fitness as a trainer, which is really a salesman job eventually. I mean, they really just milk your soul. But that was my first gig. I think I was about 25, 24, so about 14, 15 years ago. Right after any job I can get here in Miami and after college and stuff. But that kickstarted things. And, same thing. Wesley was a private, he owned his own garage gym forever. We're talking about a first garage martial arts gym in Miami 20 something years ago. So this kind of opened my eyes that maybe I could do this on my own. And then here we are, 11 years in the Battleaxe, but I always give it up to Wes. We're still very, very close. And he's like one of those unsung heroes because he's not like me. He wasn't loud about his position, but he definitely set me in this path to, which started off as, I wanted to change lives, which still is a big part of it before business became before Instagram and all this stuff. But that's how we started.
Alex, do you agree about the soul sucking, the corporate soul sucking of?
Oh yeah, the Globo gyms are terrible, but you got to learn how to sell somehow. So
Yeah, it did build a business savvy, right? That kind of no fear of approaching people about money, which I let go at first out of animosity. I was like, I'll never be like that. And then eventually you're like, well, you have to know business because you have to fucking pay rent. And you kind of remember the whole, hey, if you train this much and you lose this much body fat per week, that means you should buy a 3-month pack and all this bullshit. But to present that to somebody it takes courage. It takes personality. You
right.
have to go out of your comfort zone to sell something, and they push you. You know how it is. Hey, how many did you sell? How many did you sell? Despite me being one of the more favorite trainers there, it was business. And as much as I hated it, looking back, it really pushed me forward into selling a product.
Yeah, for sure. If I could, I remember one month I sold 10,000, which in our small ass gym was not that much usually. And I was like, holy shit, if I could do that here, what could I do on my own? Or how much do I keep of that on my own if I do that?
Right. When they gut you when you get like,
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
what's the cuts on one of those? Like what are their cuts and your cuts? It's
The
pretty
way
bad
mine
split,
worked
isn't it?
was they would give you 10% up front. So you would get paid 10% of whatever the package was in the next check. And then whenever they completed the sessions, you would get paid X amount of dollars per session. So really they're banking on
Oof.
them buying the package and never using it. So
Yeah.
then they pocket 90 and give you 10. and then they
Oh
never
my
have to have
God.
anyone use any of their equipment.
So does that incentivize you harder to like get their butts to come back and keep using those sessions then, right?
I don't know, Nathan. How do you get people to keep coming back to the gym? Can
You
you
gotta
pay them?
you gotta give them some freaking results. That's for
We give
sure.
you a birthday cake.
Right,
To this,
I mean-
I think we're at that point. Alex and I were talking about that before we came on about how to get some new clients. And it's like, golly, sometimes it's like beating your head against the wall, trying to get people motivated to come to your gym. So has that
It
gotten
really is.
has that gotten easier for you over the years? Like you said that you needed that business experience, and obviously your gym is very successful now. But does it take how long did it take you to kind of acquire that skill?
That's a great question. Um, I kind of divide the line between my gym as my passion and my online business as my profession. And what ended up happening, I first became an online coach about 9 years ago in strongman. At the time, it was just not popular. Not that I was personally ridiculed, but it was like, oh, what the fuck are you doing? The only people doing online sessions back then were bodybuilding coaches with nutrition, pictures, as it was just a international sport. So I started very raw, not understanding, certain things. And I realized my gym, Battleaxe Gym, is an invitation gym only from the first get-go. I didn't want anyone just going there. I say it very specifically. I'm like, if I don't like you, I'll kick you the fuck out. And I'm not saying it because I'm on a podcast. Everyone gets it. And if you show up unannounced, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing here? Because I'm from Miami. And if you show up like that, I'm like, you trying to rob me, dog? Because you're fucking, it's going to be a long day. But that's the attitude, right? West was very much like that too, where we had a small circle, but it was a culture. I wanted to build a community. I wanted to build like this kind of same thing I felt in martial arts where you trusted the person next to you. And that made you want to work harder and clean the gym and give a fuck. You don't have to be best friends, but there was this culture. And you can develop that in a brick and mortar. Because I was present. I could set the rules and yell and scream and whatever, motivate. Online, it's a little bit different. It's not that they can't experience the culture, it's just that the turnover is much higher. There's a little bit of disconnect in the virtual world. Of course, this was before Zoom and voice notes, even then. So for me, my online platform, which is why we look on my Instagram, it's very much like, hey, this guy's doing stuff. He's making shows, making shirts. He's an online coach. He's doing this because you want to be a part of that. So I'm not very, I don't want to say exclusive, like I'm pushing people away. I'm more inclusive online because that's my business portion. It's where I get there's no overhead. There's no limitations within miles. You can be anywhere. I've trained people all over the world. So to do that, I focused a lot of my energies. This was help with Paulo Need, who's my coach and mentor in many ways too, and a good friend of mine, to develop a much more business personality online, to develop that and show my pages that way, as well as, me as an athlete. But I keep my gym as a passion, meaning when I step into my gym, I'm home. I'm not, I don't, if I don't like you or I feel uncomfortable, I'm like, get the fuck out. Because I refuse to make that gym, that culture. I rather eat ramen noodles the rest of my life than step on eggshells in my own place. And I've married to that I've never, ever have broken that rule for myself. And I've fucked up plenty of times, but that one I didn't want to. So, to answer your question, on a personal level, I don't even advertise the Battleaxe Gym as a brick and mortar. I actually don't want a lot of people there. It's 1,000 square feet. Everyone trains there, from my family to my best friends, from scumbag to millionaires. That is like Switzerland. And the first thing I say when somebody walks in, I'm like, this is the first day, dude. If I don't like you and you don't like me, you can fucking leave. But you have to earn your place here. And, 1 out of 5, 1 out of 4 stick, but that one is worth 10, 20 clients as far as personality. And then online, it depends. You got to really push, and it's this consistent turnover of videos and, podcasts and verbiage and memes and all this stuff. But it changes with the times.
That's where you're going wrong, Alex. You need more memes. You need more memes in your content. That's what you're leaving out. You're doing a great job, Alex, of all this stuff that you're putting out there for free. That's it. That's the last piece, I think.
Memes.
The memes.
This is
Maybe.
the one.
You just got to keep throwing hooks out there. That seems like the online and I'm very new to it. Like this is only like year 1.5, maybe even 2 years, less than 2 years of me trying to throw online hooks to people. But it just seems like you have to be this constant salesman of like pitch. Because if you're not, then you're waiting for your business to die, I feel like.
It's a thin line, right? Like personally, I don't want to look like a fucking nerd either. Like I Here's an example, a personal example. When people have their head and they're talking about their client in the background, I don't like that shit. You go to YouTube right now and you look up the Battleaxe Gym Michael Della Pava. I have over 200 YouTube videos of me in front of this fucking computer talking my opinions because that's how I used to be. And it's nerdy, it's funny, and it's you can see me from big old beard to shaved head to when I had hair. But currently, now that I kind of understand a little bit more about myself, it's like you have a thin line between selling out, and I mean selling out on a personal level, and doing business. And there's a very distinct line for some of us. So how do you sell a product but stay true to yourself? So for example, I don't like that. Oh, client spotlight. Here's, I don't do that. That's not my style. I'm not a very complimentary guy anyways. Like if you do good, I'm like, okay, unless you really do awesome. So what I did is that I told my media guy, Ray, who does all my stuff in my store media, just like go put a fucking mic on me and let me run. Because my personality and I'm very confident in my coaching skills when I'm natural. So we started filming this fucking content of me coaching and making jokes and being a motherfucker. And I'm like, that's who the Battleaxe Gym is. That's the coach, and that's what you're gonna get. As opposed to me sitting in front of a board in this kind of professor way, although we do that when we do seminars, that's a different persona. And that was on my kind of like, how can I sell myself, for lack of a better word, but not sell myself out? And that was my thing. And that was, again, Paul really helped me with that. It's like, how can you take the culture of your gym and put that online? And I go, I know, just give me a fucking mic
Yeah.
and film us being us. And that's one example. Of course, this is ever evolving, right? I mean, I'm learning this 11 years in the game as a gym owner, but 14 years in the fitness industry. And it's just going to keep evolving now with AI. I mean, we can go down a fucking rabbit hole on that, but you know, you are the niche. Your culture, your personality, that's what people want.
Yeah.
Because there's a barbell in Miami every fucking corner.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a lifesaver for me, that kind of like eye opener. It's like, but how to do it naturally. And I was that's where I like to stay.
That's what my wife tries to remind me that of a lot. She's like, people could choose to go to any gym that they want to go to. They come to you because you are offering something. It's not about you, but they come because of you in that kind of aspect. So I like that you said that. That's a good perspective. Alex, you ready to jump in? You got any questions you're brewing on him?
No, I'm just gonna stick with the fun random facts like Mr. Rogers is a sniper. See
Yeah.
how that goes for me because
Oh,
that
that's
shit
a
is how I
lie.
am.
I
So
googled that so many times.
Is it true? Like, is it
It's
true?
not true. I went to the deepest parts of the internet. He's
oh
not a
no, I
bully.
got duped. Oh,
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
you got duped.
Alex,
I
Oh
looked
my
it up a
god.
million times. Yeah.
how
Yeah.
crazy would that be? That guy's just doing Mr. Rogers in the morning and he's just this killer.
Makes sense to me. It's probably why he's so nice.
Oh man. So you said you're definitely into the strongman space. So how many do you currently coach, like a certain amount of athletes? You said it's pretty limited obviously with your services, but who are some of the athletes you're training right now, and kind of like what is their, like, I don't know how to put it, I guess you would say, like man, what are the words I'm looking for? I'm drawing a blank here, but how many strongman athletes do you have currently right now that you're training?
So brick and mortar, and I'm very proud of the brick and mortar guys because almost everybody at the Battleaxe Gym who's a competitive athlete, about 80-90% of them were not, I call these homegrown, meaning they had never, ever done a strength sport. That's a real strength sport. You know what I mean? That so at the gym right now, we have about 12 to 15 strongmen. And I mean that they've either competed or have competed. So I don't call you a strongman unless you've competed. About out of those, I have about 10 or 11 that are still very active. They compete once or twice a year. I have some local guys like Nick Smith, Esteban. I have Alex Castellanos going for World's Strongest Firefighter. Nick Smith just took fifth at the Pro World Strength Games. I have had national champions, female national champions, and powerlifters as well too. We've been to Worlds a few times. Vinny took top three, and these are in strongman. The community in Florida is very strong. It's actually Florida is one of the top strongman states. Maybe Texas, California, I would rival in the sense of amount and quality. Maybe somewhere in the Northeast, like PA, sometimes New York at one point. And as far as online, I probably have like another, off the top of my head, like another 12, maybe 15. And this is in seasons, right? because what ends up happening is that I always like to have my athletes compete seasonal, meaning don't compete all the fucking time. So, or they take time off. I've had one guy, like I said, Esteban, take about a year off because I'm like, we need to make you fucking strong. He dropped to a new body weight. So active strongman can vary anywhere between 15 to 20 something. Now, for example, I host my own competition, Miami's Baddest. So when it's Miami's Baddest season, everybody and their fucking grandmother wants to be a strongman. And I want to play and I want to do this shit. So I might have like fucking 30 people getting ready for this shit. Then it's over, and then everybody wants to be a powerlifter again. So right now I have a Throwdown, which is my show as well that I promote. So I have about maybe I think 8 or 9 people getting ready of powerlifting, but I also coach 20 plus powerlifters as well, and very high level powerlifters that are getting after it or in that kind of lull in between competitions.
Man, he said 1 to 2 events a year was a lot. And then I was thinking about Kim, and Kim's like competing every like twice a month. We had a lady come on that from Colorado, and she's just like competing all the time. So is that a lot? Like two events a year? Is that usually a normal?
In what sport? Strongman?
For strongman? Like what's the normal?
So that's
because Kim's not normal. Yeah. She seems to be a little freakish when it comes to how many events she's competing in.
It depends. Here's my concept, right? If a lot of the shows are sub-maximal for you, for example, Strongman Champions League in Europe, they compete once a week for a few weeks at a time, and the season can range from 4 to 6 months where they compete maybe 20, 30 times. So that's pretty much their season. But the shows aren't crazy heavy. They're basically like a strong training session. And these numbers are up below your average. Most of these professional strongmen actually work as well. So it's also their job, but it's like half the year. For me, I think it depends. If you're a new strongman and you want to do the sport for the first time and a lot of stuff is still sub-maximal, yeah, you could. My first years, I was competing anywhere between 4 and 6 times a year. But that comes with the price, the heavier and stronger you get, because now you're not deadlifting 400 for reps, you're deadlifting 650. And now your yoke goes from 600 to 900. So there's only so much you can do, at the tip of the spear, at the top of the mountain. I think a lot of people compete often, and that's fine. I don't think it's a great idea. I think that shortens your lifespan, but you have outliers that are just fucking animals, and the shows are relatively light, and they're so strong that the shows for them is like an easy training session. So they pick a lot of shows. I've been on access of both. When I was first in my strongman career, I competed very, consistently, and a bunch of other things too, including powerlifting and jumping into. I was playing rugby as well, which was crazy. But as you get stronger, then you get more beat up. Strongman is a very, it's a short lifespan if you want it to be. It's a very violent and chaotic sport if you're not understanding it correctly. And that's why the career can be 1 year or 11 or 10 or 15. Unlike powerlifting, where you can pick your numbers. My powerlifters, I like to recommend 2 to 3 shows a year, because although it's not as violent as a strongman, it's a maximal sport, meaning you are technically maxing out. And that really kills your body and your neural system for a long time. Again, if you're a beginner and you hit a 225, that's like butter. Sure, man, compete 4 times a year. But when you fucking shit your pants on a deadlift twice a year, the weight cuts, even though I don't recommend them often, it's a different recovery. Again, if they're enhanced or unenhanced, or they're old or young, they're skilled or unskilled, it all really depends. But I always tell people, I'm like, anywhere between 2 and 4 shows a year in a strength sport, I think is pretty good, as most of us don't make a living off of this.
Yeah, the recovery time seems to be a little bit harder to recover from too when you get to that level of ability, because you're doing, like you said, maximal effort. Like Alex, I don't know, how did you feel after you competed? I know it was your first event, so it was kind of hard to gauge, but how was the recovery for the next couple of days for you?
I was fine.
Yeah, well, you're just a freak apparently.
I just didn't do enough cardio for my upper body to recover as fast, so I was a little sore.
Yeah.
My nervous system felt fine.
That was for a powerlifting contest?
Yeah.
It depends. How many contests you have?
That was my first one. I got another one in November.
You can, because those numbers, they're hard for you, you're still building your rhythm.
They weren't. I didn't understand how much the peak was going to add, so it was like there was plenty left in the tank. That's what I mean. Like it wasn't.
It should be that way. You should have in my opinion, first meet should be like 9 for 9. You should be like, God, I have like 300 pounds left. Like, yes, that's great. I
Yeah,
often
no, I
see
shit the bed on bench because I didn't remember to use my legs, but not
yeah,
used to the carpet on the floor instead of the rubber. So
that's the trenches, man. The things you learn for sure.
Hmm. How difficult has it been running your own shows and kind of getting your own image and things like that out there for a platform? Do people come to you to doing these events? Is that kind of chaotic? Does that kind of put extra stress on the business side?
Yeah, man. I'll tell you. I admittedly run myself very thin. I understand that, having retail, running shows, being a coach, an online coach, and a competitive athlete amongst, being the breadwinner in my house and taking care of my parents and trying to not get fucked up in this city and all this stuff. I like to run myself thin, but I think we have a short pocket of time where we can push our bodies and our business very, very far. And I believe that I have that now as I'm less competitive and I'm more business driven right now. And I have to admit that as much as I hate it. But hosting a show, my first few shows are, I started Miami's Baddest in 2015, I believe was my first one, 2015, 2016. Yeah, 2016. And I don't know much. I had great help from Alan from Ironhouse and Scott up there that had done shows before. And I basically winged it a lot. I did a lot of the stuff. I asked questions. I felt very vulnerable, very silly, very, very nervous because I always had high expectations. And now we're one of the best, biggest shows in the state. As far as, again, we may have anywhere between 40 and 70 athletes, but we're just fucking good at it. And then when we took over Throwdown, it was my first. I asked for it. I wanted this show. It was 2019, my first powerlifting meet, which we shift with USPA Florida has a very tight crew. So they do all the judging and all that shit. I don't touch that. I'm more of the promoter and getting things, my crew getting everything in. It's hard, man. It there certainly isn't worth the money in the sense if you're looking at it financially. You might make some money, but if you put in the hours and stress at first of how much you're putting into this contest, it doesn't equate. You from a few hours of coaching people, you'll make way more. But the exposure, the experience, if you really love giving back to the sport, seeing your people be a part of it, that relative is, concept is priceless. And then, of course, you're exposed. People are like, oh, you're this person. Can I train with you? Can I buy your shirts? And overall, it can be very lucrative, but at first it's difficult. And I always tell people to, keep it simple, like anything else. But once you build your brand and you stamp Battleaxe Gym on something, people are like, oh, if Mike's running that, I'm going to be there. And that was the ultimate goal. And that's taken quite some time. And I give credit to my crew at the Battleaxe that are just the fucking best. I hashtag that shit all the time, but those guys are the fucking best at, spotting, loading, being active, and more importantly, like giving a fuck. Like they really care about the sports. But it could be, I just did World Strength Games and man, it's tiring, man. We loaded the truck Wednesday and I worked Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday unloaded the truck. You're looking anywhere between 12 and 16-hour days and just constant stress and all that stuff. And it's tough, but you got to love it. You got to love that concept and you got to see it on a business concept of what you're doing for yourself over the years because hosting shows can be lucrative, but you got to build your brand first and then go on from there.
Yeah. So it's been a good return on investment, it sounds like, for you, which is obviously probably what you had in the back of your mind thinking about those things in the first place, for sure. I love how you said that you got to really care about it and you got to really love it and you got to not be afraid of those 12 to 16-hour days. Because, like, in the beginning, like when I'm starting my gym or I was starting my gym, I was constantly just like, what do I need to do here? What do I need to do here? How do I work this? And a lot of people don't think in that aspect. They're not motivated to being like, I'm going to work really hard in this amount of time for this amount of my life to get my gym or my brand or my idea to the level that I think it can get there. And then, like, so when people talk to you, like, it probably sounded a little crazy to them, but I'm sure that you still had that vision. It was like, this is what it's going to be. So was it kind of hard in the beginning for you to kind of get the right people on your side to keep pushing that vision forward? It was just like you versus the world and like, I'm going to do it regardless,
That's a really great question, man. I appreciate good questions. Well, Nate, I'll be honest with you. If you want to be successful in life, you have to be fucking crazy. There's no cliche as it sounds. Ambition takes courage. And more often than not, courage is mixed up with crazy. because to have courage, sometimes you do have to kind of believe in the impossible. You do have to push the limit. If you're the forefront, if you're the leader, if you are the image, you're the one putting yourself at risk physically, mentally. And I mean that as an athlete or the warrior code or as a business owner. So at first, when I didn't have the same culture, although when I did first Miami's Baddest Man, I already had a solid, tight knit group, but you're talking about like 6, 7 guys. It wasn't like I had 10, 15 and volunteers and people going, I want to help. I want to help. It was more often like, hey, man, are you sure? And I said, I got this. And you're right. You have to have a vision and you have to adhere to it and at least set your values. And I don't mean that in a moral code because I'm not a moral man in the sense I'm not trying to tell you to be good or bad. Is that if you have your values and ideology, they should be seared into your soul and you don't bend for anyone because the more you bend, the more weak you become. And then everyone's like, yeah, but this fucking guy that changes his mind all the time, or he had a bad show. And people can feel that, and one of my biggest things about running shows is be present. I shake hands and kiss babies or, talk to everyone and fucking go around everywhere and make sure everyone knows who I am. Don't do that. Don't do this because you are the show. You are the concept of it. Same thing you do in your gym, right? You don't just like not introduce yourself. And it takes courage because you are the face. If it fails, it's on you and it should be that way. And if it does well, it's we did it. You don't want to take the whole concept of it. But yeah, I mean, it's just like training through injury. When you become seriously injured, God forbid you guys ever experience it, but when you really become injured, I mean like injured, surgery injured, and you're like, I'm gonna be back. People look at you like, yo, you're fucking crazy. And you're like, yeah, I am fucking crazy. But you have to adhere it to your brain in this kind of like nonsensical concept that this will happen, and that's the drive. And I believe that as far as like I learned that from being an athlete, I learned that from fighting. I would fight bigger opponents and I'm like, I'm going to fucking win. And even if I was scared out of my mind or if I lost or won, I still felt that I could win. And that's a big deal when you're hosting shows, when you're an athlete, when you're a coach, right? Because as a coach, it's our job to believe in the impossible. I would not want a coach who's so realistic. He's like, yeah, you have a 40% chance to win. I'm like, well, fuck you, guy. I'm not doing this. Like I want to be like, look, dude, it's going to be hard, but you fucking got this. And it's because they have to give off that energy. So yeah, man, crazy is crazy is a concept. Obviously, not the GPS. It's more like a high octane fuel, and you got to run with it.
Confidence, oh man, some people just think when you're confident about your gym or your vision, or when you talk about like what you do, they think you're crazy because it's like, and then you tell them where you came from and like how you got to the point you're at. Like when I tell people, oh yeah, I started in a garage, they were like, what? Are you a psychopath? Like, no, like I love this stuff. I love doing this stuff. It's way better than what I was doing punching the clock 9 to 5 every day. So yeah, I if people don't know how hard some of this stuff is to like actually care about people for 16 hours a day and try to want to really truly help people, they don't realize how exhausting that can be. So I commend you for that because it's hard. It's really, really hard.
I commend you too, man. We're in the same boat.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit more worn down, but it doesn't make your journey less difficult.
Oh, I get that. Yeah. Cause like you said, I mean, I think about 10 years from now, I'm like, man, am I still going to be passionate about this? Am I still going to care about this? So when you say you've been in the game for as long as you have, like I respect those people very highly because I'm like, man, I get it. It's tough to contain or to maintain that level of consistency for.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah, it can be a motherfucker sometimes.
So you said you're still competing. What does your competitions look like right now? Like how much time? You said you can't devote as much time, obviously, to the athlete side of yourself, but how much are you committing to that athlete and that competition side of your life right now? What's that look like for you?
So originally I was a competitive Muay Thai fighter, and then that led to playing rugby. It led to powerlifting, strongman. In that process, I did Highland Games, and finally, I've decided like really wholeheartedly to get into bodybuilding. Now, it wasn't an easy decision to take a step away from strongman, and I'm a competitive person. Competition is life to me. I'm extremely competitive. I've always thought something competitive is worthwhile. I am that guy that makes competitions out of everything from gambling to fucking beer pong. I take that shit like the World Cup. Anything we do I'm competitive. I've learned not to be so toxic, although I'm a fucking sore loser. When I was a kid, that would fucking get mad and flip the fucking Monopoly board. Like that was me. And I hated myself. Uh, my parents used to laugh and punish me because I would play Parcheesi. Colombians love to play Parques. And when I would lose, I would throw a fit until my mom had to spank my ass. But that little kid hasn't died. And I believe that being competitive in most things is my drive. It doesn't have to be everyone's. So the competitive sport that I chose at this particular time in my life to kind of really focus on and give it its respect is bodybuilding. I started training bodybuilding not as serious last August, meaning I started using machines and things that I don't do at my gym. My gym doesn't have any machines like that. I started training with Paul O'Need, who's been, again, a great coach and great inspiration for that. And then I took a whole year. So I started in 2023, much more serious, meaning 5 days of training, 4 or 5 days of cardio, little less drinking, more adherence to diet because, I like having my beers and whiskey on the weekend. And then I decided to do a show next May. So I took this whole year to really drive down. So as far as competition, contest prep starts next January, where I will be, that's it, no drinking, no cheating, really fucking driven down and giving the sport its respect. If you would have told me I would have been on a bodybuilding stage 10 years ago, I would have called myself a big pussy. But about 5, 6 years ago, I said, man, I'd like to do them before 40. I turned 39 in August. I turned, next August, I turned 40. And I plan to get on stage in the first week of June. I think it's Southern regionals or Southern states, I think is the competition. So that's what my life looks like now. And bodybuilding is very time consuming. It has opened my eyes to just how much work it takes. And that's that I would say I'm 80, 85% committed because the 15% is not as much cardio, even though I do like 4 or 5 days of 30 minutes. The diet, like I'm eating 4,100 calories clean. Sometimes I'll have a fucking burger or ice cream or a few beers. So that's the real adherence to it. Posing, I do posing on my own. I do the long training sessions. I do work till failure, all that stuff. And that's where myself as far as competition is. So although it takes a lot less, how would I say this? In strongman, I was just very mentally like raging to compete. There was just like this animal that it takes to get on that competitive field. It's a little less of that and just more adherence to the boring, like, constant driven line of the mundane and loving that process. And that's just adhering to my life. So it wasn't that I go, oh, I'm going to do this. It's more like my life right now is liking that consistency, that scheduled concept. Like I train from 9 to 11, then I post from 11 to 12. And it's just been working a little bit better for me as a businessman and as an athlete. So that's kind of what
again, I commend you for that discipline. I don't think people understand how hard it is to be an actual committed bodybuilder to the level that you're talking about, to actually get on stage and perform like that. Like every bodybuilder we've talked to or every performer we've talked to, it's such a dedicated process. And like people don't understand how dedicated you have to be to achieve that type of thing. So has that been difficult adhering to that thing, or what do you feel like January is going to be like when that rolls around, when there's no more burgers and beer and some of those cheat days?
And I tell you, like I said, even at 75, 85% adherence is hard. So again, hats off to where I'm going. The hardest part is the social aspect. I like to drink, man. I'm not one of these fucking guys that's like, oh, eat your salad. Like, look, I like whiskey, bro. I'll fucking crack a bottle of Jameson and have a great time. I like cigars. I mean, I grew up in Miami, dog. It says enough. But going out and like it's football season, and I'm a Dolphins fan, so you can already, even though we won 70-0.
Oh, don't hurt.
It's a life of struggle.
Don't hurt Alex's feelings right now. It might be too soon. He's a Broncos fan, so
listen. Hey, we are accepting all fans, Papa. Come on.
I think you're muted. I think
you're so upset you mute yourself.
Yeah, you're just upset.
Yeah, I did.
He's crying. He doesn't want to hear us crying.
I do love Mike McDaniel, though. He's like the best coach to watch.
He's awesome, man. That's a Dungeons and Dragons champion right there.
Yes.
One of us.
Yeah.
I love it, dude. But, for example, Sundays, having a fucking 12-pack with your buddies and eating wings and the social aspect of it is tough for me. I'll be honest with you. I have a lot of great friends. I can be a very social person, even though I consider myself like a social lone wolf, which is a term that I'm very educated and practical in being social because I was brought up that way. But I can feel very lonely in a room full of people because I can feel very different or disassociated with people. But I practice on being social. I will come up to you, I'll make a conversation just to get that consistency in that practice. But I like, going to a get together and having a fucking couple drinks. I don't see the problem with it. But there's really no space for alcohol in bodybuilding. It's probably the worst thing for aesthetics. I mean, in strongman, we get away with a lot of shit. I'll be honest with you. In powerlifting too. Like I pulled 650 for reps, hungover as a motherfucker. No problem. I picked up 400-pound stones, like wrecked. But whiskey and deadlifts, that doesn't exist in bodybuilding. Aesthetically, it kills you. And you look, and when you're doing anywhere between 12 and 25 reps till failure, like 6 times in a training session, you can't. It's just, and you look like shit. So you're like kind of like half naked going, I shouldn't have had those fucking beers. And it just takes away a lot from your body. Bodybuilding is how far can you break your body down consistently over years to look as best as it can. And that has real zero room for alcohol and it's actual scientific consumption and or lifestyles, right? And bodybuilding, as far as I'm concerned, and how I've talked to people in my perspective as an outsider coming in is, being on stage is a fraction, maybe 5% of the work. It's really a couple minutes of work to expose years and months of dedication to things that you probably don't want to do, which is sleeping 8 fucking hours, waking up early for cardio, adhering to your fucking calories, macros, saying no to people like, hey man, I can't really go to your party because I have to go to sleep or I can't be around stuff. And that's hard. I think that's the hardest thing. And being open about it. Like I don't want to go and like, oh man, I'm fucking gonna love this. I'm gonna fucking hate it. But I am also a weirdo and I love suffering and I like things that are hard. And I think it's worth a good story to tell. I'm very addicted to that process. So that's where I see myself kind of like, come January, you have like St. Patrick's Day, you have Miami's Baddest, which is my competition, which I love to have a few beers after that, people's birthday parties and going there with my fucking little meal and eating. Like, I see that as hard for me. But I've taken this whole fucking year slowly, taking my meals to places, social events, letting people know, like, hey, man, I'm taking this very seriously. This isn't an Instagram thing, or I'm doing it because I consider myself a washed out strength athlete because I do plan on returning to strongman. But I want to respect the process. I want to give the sport its due diligence. And so, yeah, that's going to be the toughest part.
That just sounds like training in a nutshell. Like with more people, it's hard to get. How did you learn that discipline? I mean, obviously the fighting sports, I think that probably plays a whole big role with the Muay Thai and things like that. That's obviously you've created a level of discipline throughout your life. But how does someone that's already at the age, like maybe in their 40s, 50s, that have just found training, like how do you think that they should be able to find or obtain that level of discipline when they want to actually get the kind of results that they're looking for? Is that the toughest aspect of coaching, do you feel like, to get people that level of discipline?
So that's a great question. And I would piggyback on what I said before is that the lifestyle of a bodybuilder, it should be the lifestyle of an athlete. That was my mistake as a strongman, is that I used strongman as a way to get away with shit. But it wasn't the sport's fault. It's my fault for drinking and eating pizzas. Like it's my fault. I hate when people do strongman. They're like, oh, now I can eat like a fat piece of shit. I'm like, man, that's you and your fucking problems because I did the same. So I just chose a sport where I can get away with it a little bit more, and we can. Um, and that aspect of building that consistency, I've always had. I'm a very self-destructive person, admittedly. It's one of my vices, man. When I sense calm, I become almost self-destruct. I can't. It's like I'm this morbid concept that if I have a good day, I'm like, tomorrow I'll get hit by a car for sure. I don't know where it comes from or what. And I've grown to accept this concept and develop it. So the way I speak to my clients and is kind of this concept I've created with mental hygiene. I talked about it with Dave Tate and the idea of these stepping stones into building discipline, because discipline is a tool set like fear and courage and motivation. And often and not, and I see this, and I've been on the scene saying this for many years. I love motivation. And I'm not one of these fucking Jocko wannabes that's like discipline over motivation. I'm like, shut up. Shut up, because you got motivated by that video. So you're motivated by the thing that you're talking about. You saw that video and got motivated to be disciplined. So it's almost like an oxymoron there. There are two tool sets. And I tell people that discipline is your own personal part of your tool set. So you have to develop and understand what gets you out of bed. What is your desire? What is your goal? And these tool sets of what worked for you that day. For example, I'll give you a personal example just because it's anecdotal, but it's also based on science. I almost lost my father last year in October to a brain bleed. He made it, but he's fucked up. He doesn't work anymore, right? He's a little banged up. So now I have to make more money because it's my fucking responsibility to take care of my father. So I have to make more money. That is a single driving, undeniable, like set in fucking stone in my brain. I can see my dad plugged up. So it's like, that is my why. Every moment I start to kind of adhere to it, that is so seared into my brain that I cannot not do something. It's my constant, my northern star, and it's a painful, hard, and very sad northern star. But that's how I function. I told you, like I like that, and I visualize that. I visualize giving my father opportunities and my mother, and I visualize seeing him, and I visualize myself being successful, and then that makes me change my body language. My body language is proud. I stand up straight. I tell you this story with confidence, even though it makes me really sad. It's personal to me, and it's these concepts, right? And these are my tools to be disciplined. They're not. There may be anecdotal in the sense that they're personalized, but visualization, body language, identifying a why are all concepts of psychology and sports psychology in general. And these three are personalized. I make these three concepts and I personalize them. Your why might be your gym or your family member or your child. Your visualization practice is you seeing yourself succeed or deadlift 700 pounds or getting a six pack. Your body language is the way you walk into the gym, the way you suddenly pick up your posture, or the way you approach people. And these things are what I practice and I've been developing, and it's, trademark into saying like your mental hygiene tools, right? When you think of spine hygiene or dental hygiene, it's these stepping stones. Because if I yell at you and be like, just be fucking disciplined or work harder, you're like, oh, the fuck does that, like, what are you telling me? It seems very exclusive there. Like you're not giving me a setting stone. But if I'm like, hey, I want you to grab this screwdriver, this wrench, and I want you to come over here and I want you to work on this concept. So if I tell you, I want you to tell me your visualization practices you did for today and tell me the why for this year and tell me why you wouldn't work for that and how you're going to work for that and how you got to the gym in the first place. And you're like, oh shit, okay. And that's very personal. It's adaptable and malleable to the person. It becomes a tool set. And in that process, what are you learning? The number one fucking tool when you talk to somebody, communication. Because you're teaching this person how to speak their mind. And now I say this again, this is not the tool of a therapist. I'm not trying to tell you to moral compass to be a good or bad person. It's how to be a better athlete and how to be a better coach. And in the process, this helps you be whatever you want to be better at. And I'm very, very, very married to the concept of psychology. It was my major in college. It's always been my favorite thing ever. It's the reason why I stepped in the ring in the first place. And that's a great concept for me in a very simple terminology of how you can teach somebody discipline. And I like motivation is one. My dad's my motivation. My parents are my motivation, amongst many things, dude. Like a cool song, this podcast, like talking about this right now. Like I want to go train. I'm motivated. I'm like, and if you look at motivation as a tool set rather than this grandiose, epic YouTube video that you're fucking watching, and it doesn't have to be, man. Like sometimes I look at my two dogs that are sleeping here, and I'm like, all right, yeah, I like these dogs. They put me in a good mood. I like feeding these dogs. I want to take care of them. They're like my babies. And I got after the gym. It's something stupid as I walk out the day and it starts to rain. I love rain. And I'm like, I'm gonna go fuck the gym up today. It's raining for a reason. And I'm not that guy, but I'm like, it's a good omen. Ask all my crew. It rains. I'm like, it's a good omen. We're gonna do good today. And it's just a tool set. And that's kind of like how I talk to my guys constantly. I mean, there are stepping stones, and I want to be very specific. They're anecdotal, but their roots are based on science, peer-reviewed concept of what visualization, body language, communication, culture. These are the science of psychology, and then we play with it.
I want to. Hey, Alex, I'm leaving you. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go train with. I'm just kidding.
Hey,
That's
Right.
great.
come to
That
Miami.
you should. Yeah, listen to this guy. How this guy talks to me. No, that's true. Because I will say that like a good coach can get you to believe in a better version of yourself than you possibly see through using those type of things. Like, hey, what are your external or internal factors that are pushing you or driving you? And that in turn leads to that level of discipline. I feel like so. Good
Right,
job,
it's like
Alex. You do that.
he does, man, and we do, right? Like it's our job to believe the impossible. But I was like, how can I make my client see them the way I see them? It's always the struggle because you view them as like they're courageous and they have effort, and you pat them on the back and you're like, great job, and they're like, well, I guess, and I'm like, how can you just see yourself? And I, over years, this is my developing theory, and this is where I see myself going in the next 10 years, is these hygiene tools and this communication and language. This is the stepping stone, and here we are.
Just very relational people. We should be relational people. I don't know. Maybe I crave that relationship aspect of like, that's why I like coaching so much, is I enjoy the relational aspect of it. So that's a big part for me. So you mentioned that you did Highland Games, and I had a few people that were very interested that around here and kind of helped them prepare for that a little bit. And then they kind of went by the wayside. But like, how did you enjoy the Highland Games? Because it was kind of similar to the strongman aspect, and it was just kind of wove in a different way, or did that last a short while, or how was the Highland Game experience for you?
So I love the Highland Games because obviously kilts and anything Scottish, Irish. I love both those countries. I've been to both those countries. I love the people, the culture, everything. The landscape is beautiful. But I mean, who hasn't watched Braveheart and hasn't wanted to do everything Scottish in the fucking world? Let's be real. Any American, I'm Colombian, dude. So it's like I saw Braveheart and I'm like, Scottish people are the best. And aside from that, I had seen a couple of them. I remember growing up and going to Renfest and seeing them do these things. Obviously, the caber toss being the most popular. And sometime in 2019, end of 2019, going into 2020, is like right. No, actually, 2019 was my first Highland Games, right before COVID, like the beginning of 2019. My good friend Bill, who is a world champion now at 50 plus, Simonich, amazing. He did it, and he was the first person ever that I met that I knew that did it. And I said, I would love to do that. It looks so athletic. And I think, I mean, I love being an athlete. I don't like just like, I like being able to move, jump, turn. I'm not just like this stiff piece of like board. And he goes, hey, let's go to the park and let's try it out. I'll teach you. And we went out there and he brought the implements, which you have to work to get. You can't just like, the only one you can kind of figure out is the stone. You have to get a particular stone for it. And we just started throwing. And I fell in love with the technicality of it. I think it's the most technical, considered a strength sport, the most technical. I would say only next to weightlifting. And I mean that because weightlifting has only two movements and Highland Games has nine. And they're all technical. Strength helps, but not as much. And so I just jumped in my first show after training like 4 to 6 weeks and took second. I was just strong. So I got away with a lot of things in the B class, right? Because there's novice, I think D, C, maybe D, C, and then B, and then A being like right before pro. I did well in B class and I got second place like 4 or 5 fucking times, constantly like right under some guy that had been always competing or better than me. And finally I got into A class because we did a show in St. Augustine. And the guy that beat me was a 200 because we combined classes. He ended up being on his podcast too. I was like, yo, this guy's been doing this for, he's not a real B class. And I go, all my numbers are A class throws. So I qualify, I go, just, I'm tired of going to B class and like, I feel like a schmuck here. Like I'm trying to show off at a B class. So I made A class. And then when I made A class, right before I got to really compete as an A class, I did it once in Pfeffer. I started shifting over to bodybuilding just because my Achilles started hurting. But I love Highland Games, man. The technique, the competitions are fun. Like it's like you have fun, a lot of fun. Obviously, you can take it very seriously. The people in the community are great. They're always cracking jokes, very helpful. No one's like rude to you for the most part. The audience is amazing. The roar of the crowd, like because you're at a festival, so A, people are drinking, and B, you're the entertainment. So when you make something, they're like, "Yeah, Mike," and I'm like, "Are you talking to me?" I'm like, fuck yeah, okay, and you're walking around a fucking kilt and you're taking your shirt off and putting on a show. It was just a little bit of everything, right? A little bit of putting on a show and being an athlete and having a good time. And then afterwards you have beers and tell stories. And I recommend it to anybody. You basically find a group of people or go to a competition and ask, hey, where do you guys train around here? Who goes? And they typically throw Saturdays or Sundays, and it's very little injury risk. You're just learning things. And obviously the caber, that's the riskiest one. You typically learn that in competition, but it's amazing. I recommend that everyone give it a shot and help grow the community because it's a very niche sport. So it's tough, but Florida has a big community. Most states do in the East Coast, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's getting a little bit more popular around the Midwest here. There's a big group in Oklahoma I know that goes out and they throw every Sunday, and there was a group here in Missouri that was throwing, and so I kind of helped them train and stuff like that. But man, when they showed me like videos and stuff of their events, it's awesome. Like the amount of energy there and like the people there, it's like it's a full on huge big event. Like even if it doesn't seem like there's a lot of people there, it just seems like a pretty cool environment. Yeah.
Yeah, even at the small festivals, it's fun.
How was the caber? Like how hard did it take you a while to kind of figure that technique of that thing out? Because it's for people who don't know, can you explain what the caber is?
So the caber is anywhere between like a 16 to 20 something foot long telephone pole style, meaning it's a little bit smaller on one end than it is on the other, although it doesn't have to be. There's no set rules on the size. Typically, the higher the class, the bigger and heavier the pole is. The longer, obviously, the taller. That's not necessarily the weight, but the taller the pole, the harder it is, obviously, to flip. You are trying to make the pole flip once over, and then when it falls forward, it's a clock, meaning if you get it straight in the center, it's 12 o'clock, 11, 10, or 1 and 2, 12 being the highest point. And if it gets right to the tip and it falls back, they give you a degree, meaning how the caber looked at its a degree when it looks vertically. There's a side judge for it. You're trying to flip this caber, it's crazy. Now, the caber could be like 80, 90 pounds, which is nothing. But when you're holding that caber to your body and you're feeling that motherfucker sway, you're like, oh, I've done a lot of things like that one. It's still scary. I don't care until you get the hang of it. Very difficult, very hard to train because who the fuck has a caber who's going to drive it out to a field? We made one for our gym, but it's 18 feet of 2x4s. So we need a fucking truck and all that stuff. It's the crowd favorite, which I hate because I suck at it. So I'm like, fuck, I can't do the one everyone likes. I've only flipped a competitive caber once, and that was in the competition that I got out of B class. It was like one of the best days ever. A cabers are insane. I mean, the way those guys move that caber is like it's just crazy athletic, and you're feeling that sway. You have to move left, right, and it's very athletic, very tricky. It's a real tree. So sometimes you get like bark and it's fucking you up, and it's smooth or not smooth. If it's rainy and windy, they're like, well, I mean, fucking deal with it. It's an outdoor game. And the history of the Scottish Games is very interesting. Some people, it says it comes from Scottish warriors training with tools to fight the English. Like the caber toss was how they used to get up on the wall, so they would flip the caber and go. Other people just say it's a bunch of fucking farmers having a dick measuring contest and be like, I can throw this further than you, kind of thing. And I think it's a mixture of both.
That sounds like a men thing to do. That sounds like men for sure.
Yeah.
We're just like, yeah, you want to throw this big tree out here? Let's see who can throw it the best.
Rock further than you. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
That's where it came from. And yeah, the cabers, I mean, I hate that I suck at it. And it just takes practice. But it's awesome. It's a really cool event. Plus, you see it kind of like go here, and then it falls, and the crowd goes crazy. And it's pretty cool.
We got lucky. The guy that was training here, he had his ins with the telephone company, so they let him snag one of the telephone, like old ones that they're not using or something like that had kind of rotted away, and he used that. So he got pretty good at it. But yeah, it's difficult. People don't realize how hard it is to flip that damn thing. Like it's
when you're holding that shit, you're like,
yeah.
Am I gonna die? Because if that thing falls on you, it'll fuck you up. Like when it's falling, they're like, let it go. Because once that weight, I'm strong, man. You're not holding, like, that weight goes, it goes, and then it kind of rebounds. And one time it smacked me in the hand because I didn't move enough. I thought I fucking fractured my hand because I kind of got mad and I didn't really give it a good dump, and it bounced up and bang, and I was like, I played it cool, but I was like, what an idiot. Like I should have fucking moved, dude. And but again, it's spicy.
It's definitely a farmer and styled sport too, with like the sheaf throw and things like that. Taking a pitchfork and just stabbing a hay bale and throwing it as high as you possibly
Yeah.
can. Was that
That's
one?
in the American.
Yeah. Was that one
It's called
tough? Was that one tough for you?
So yeah, I mean that one. So when you see like because you can kind of like wing it and just kind of like throw it. When you're kind of new, you kind of do like a C-shaped hook. So you almost turn sideways to the line because you don't really have a skill set. But eventually you kind of learn. It's still tough. Like I would never say I was good at hiding games. I was pretty good. I think strength and athleticism took me far enough where I can get to A class and be competitive. But it's definitely an athletic thing. So the sheaf is one of those very just extremely unique. You have to have a sheaf and you have to have the fork and you got to practice. There's no way around it. The only thing I think that trains you for is obviously something like a high pull or a snatch because it's a vertical jump, right? It's a vertical push, but it's vertical to the side with a pitchfork. So a lot of leg drive, but I like the sheaf a lot because anything over a bar is just so fun. It's so dramatic. Like weight over bar, that's a strongman dream because it's a lot of strength. You get a 56-pound weight and you swing it with one arm and you throw it over a bar. So it's like very much a crowd favorite.
Sure.
When you're going for distance, yeah, it's cool, but the crowd doesn't really understand that. You can't see the difference between 54 and 56, 58 and 61, but you can see that little motherfucker go over the bar. So and caber, you can see the caber fall forward, so
Yeah.
the crowd gets really behind it.
Yeah. The stones are just like a shot put. It's just like, okay, he's just shot putting, but like,
Yeah,
no,
it's
they're a
cool, but
little
nobody.
awkward, but yeah.
Yeah, everybody
Yeah.
you see when it's the sheaf, weight over bar, and caber, you have the audience like and the cheering. It's pretty cool.
That's cool. That's cool. So how's you said you grew up in Miami and you've mentioned a couple times like kind of a little bit leery or a little bit waysided about the people that kind of come into your gym sometimes, but what was growing up in Miami like, or like is it true like what you see on TV or like all these documentaries and like what's Miami like? Like tell people, us Midwestern people, we're a little naive over here, so we kind of need to
So
know.
there's two lives in Miami. There's the one you live and the one you get into. So, and I mean that because if you want to be a motherfucker and go on the right side or the wrong side of the law and live a life like that, all you gotta do is go around the corner. Certain friends, I mean, it's not hard, just like any other small town, except it's just prevalent down here. Miami's a great town. You just gotta know who to hang out with and where to go. It's great in the sense that it's very ambitious. I hated the city growing up. I hated the concept, the meanness of it. When I lived in PA for a while, I realized just how mean Miami was because everybody in the Midwest and Ohio, because I lived in Ohio for a little bit, so fucking nice, like just great. And I loved it. And people are just kinder. But I also understood that what we call chispa in Spanish was like a spark because in Miami, a lot of us are immigrants or sons of immigrants. So you have to work, you have to hustle, you have to have that. Hey man, I'll work whatever it takes to pay bills and push forward and get things done. And you have that go getter attitude. You have to say hi to people, and you fucking have to be ambitious. And whether it's cultural or just being trying to get it past where you're not really inheriting shit. My parents came here as poor immigrants. I didn't get a car from them. I didn't get land. My dad didn't own a company. So that pulls you forward. You see your parents, and I don't mean that just as a Hispanic thing. I think all of us can relate to that in some sense. You see your parents work really fucking hard. So you try hard, at least for the most part. But yeah, man, I mean, a lot of my friends are or have been, gangs, drug dealers, and scumbags, and some of them made it, some of them did it. I want to say I wasn't fucking slinging kilos or anything. I was relatively a good kid. I didn't want to really hurt my mom's feelings, but you're always rubbing elbows with good and bad people, or you can live a very comfortable life and everything can be fine. You can go to private schools and everything's good. It's just Miami has this kind of attitude, little at any given moment, you can go anywhere you want. You can party, you can be disciplined, you can, live by the beach, you can live on the streets, you can party till 5 in the morning, or you can get a 9 to 5 and never see anything of it. But culturally, Miami stands very much apart because it's a melting pot of all the Americas, Latin America, Central America, and all this concept of it. It's all these attitudes and different concepts of it, from not only Hispanics, but you have like Haiti and Jamaica and all that stuff. And It's really interesting. It's a lot. It's good sometimes because it's great melting pot, and sometimes it sucks and people are fucking crazy down here and they think that they own the city. And traffic is terrible, and it's very, very, very expensive to live down here. But like I said, overall, I'm very proud that I grew up in. Now, before I was like, fuck that town. Because everybody's like, oh, I love Miami. I'm like, you love Miami because you visit South Beach for a week and you get wasted with your girlfriends and you fuck off. Like, you're not here with the bullshit and the fucking, lock your door, don't leave your purse in. What are you doing getting in the gas station at night? Don't talk to that motherfucker. Like, getting cut off, like city life, like any other city life, like, it's what I said. Somebody knocks on your door, you're like, hey, pal, come on in, bud. Somebody knocks on my door, I'm like, the fuck you doing here, dog? Like, what do you want? I don't know you, because they could fucking shoot you. Like or they can be offering, they can be a fucking Jehovah's Witness or offering you some cards. I've gotten people that are like, sir, I'm just giving you a card. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Yeah, man, I'll take your car wash. Thanks, man. Like it's just the way that it is. It's a very kind of spicy city in that sense, but it's certainly like any other city, like New York. I would say like New York, maybe Chicago. I don't know about LA. LA's changed a lot, but it puts a chip on your shoulder. It certainly makes you a go-getter, and it makes you an outlier in the sense of like when you typically meet people from Miami, there's like this like energy about them that they're like, yo, you're a little different. You have like this thing, I call it chispa, but it's because you have to. It's because you have to.
Yeah, survive, thrive. You got to thrive, or you got to survive.
Very competitive town, especially for gyms. Like there's in my square mile around my gym, there's 9 other gyms.
Oh wow,
1 square mile.
Wow.
And they're all warehouse gyms, except the one big one, Empire, where I train it. In 1 fucking square mile.
Wow.
So you gotta hustle.
Is it a lot of it commercialized gyms, or are there a lot like yours?
A lot like mine now.
Yeah.
Back in the day, it was only like, we had Porky's down here, LA Fitness, 24-hour fitness. Now the garage gym concept is, all over the world. But Miami's a very aesthetic city. Everyone down here is fucking beautiful. So everyone wants to look sharp. So gyms are like a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. Can't say that about the Midwest, unfortunately.
But you guys are nice.
We are. Nice. Yeah, we're very nice people. I don't really ever have to deal with rude people or jerk people or ignorant people. But Missouri's pretty nice. It's pretty quiet, pretty quaint, but it's nothing like Miami, that's for sure.
Yeah, listen, man, I don't see myself here forever.
Yeah.
Like, you run yourself. Out of my 39 years of life, I've been in Miami for 34 of them, 35. So a lot of us are like, it's just that it's so expensive. It's hard to save money. Like the overhead and everything is insane. But the plan is to make enough to live a quiet life. But as of now, like I don't desire that yet. Like when I visited Norway, I'm like, okay, I could die here. Like this is awesome. But not yet.
Yeah. So what is kind of the next stages for you? And, you said you're 39. And so kind of like, what does the next 5 years look like for you? What's the next 10 years look for you? Is it just more of the same and kind of just keeping it consistent and steady? Or how far do you want to expand what it is that you've already created for yourself?
It's a great question too. So I look back on my last 10, 11 years and I realized that what it took to get here is not the same person that's going to get to the next 10 years. That was a very hard pill to swallow as a man because we consider prowess and aggressive and all that concept to be masculine. When I'm at the age now where I see patience and understanding as more courageous. When I was younger, I would set everything on fire to get what I wanted. And although that animal's still there, very much so, I've become more, as Andrew Triana told me once, a sniper rifle than a machine gunner, right? Very precise, very deadly, and strikes when you need to, rather than fucking everything up. But there was a time when you need to be that way. That person that took to build the culture and to get here and to be 11 years in the business and fucking have head tattoos and eyelid tattoos and get paid for this shit and be able to say almost whatever he wants. There has to be an evolution of things, whether it's maturity or demand or survival, where I see myself in the next 10 years building something that takes less like fire and aggression and kind of fine tunes that as a tool set, not entirely as a personality type. So things like consultation, online coaching is a big drive. Like I said, I'd like to go back to school for my master's in sports psychology and really develop this mental hygiene because I really know that I'm onto something. I feel it. I know it. I've discussed it. I want to adhere it. I want to be very special at it. You know, Andrew Locke, who's a good buddy of mine, was in my gym, and he's like, everyone has to strive to be the best in the world in something, whether it's whatever it is, strive to be the best in the world in something. And that really stuck with me because that's my mindset. I don't know if I'll be the best in the world in anything, but the drive certainly is there, right? Like I don't think I've ever considered myself a professional athlete, although I've gotten paid to compete. You know, being a coach, we all kind of do in some sort of way. But my effort and my passion was professional. So that concept still remains, you know, and I don't mean to throw my age like, oh man, I'm kind of an old man and this is it, because when you get to 39, it's just different. Just like when I was 25 and I got to 30, it's just a different mindset. You're still very much a wild animal. And I speak to this openly, whether you're a man or a woman. It's like there is this, if you're ambitious and you're a leader, there's that drive to be the best at something. You just learn really how to use it because you have more stress and you have less time. So I realized that that's the most important thing. Well, I used to have 10 hours to slang at the gym all the time. Well, I kind of want to be home sometimes. I kind of want to be doing this. You know, 5 years ago, I would have been like, bro, can we do it on a Sunday? Because I have to be at the gym and I have to do this. And now I'm like, for sure, I can schedule my stuff around. So developing myself personally on that aspect. And I always say this, it's not that I'm trying to be a good man, is that I'm trying to be a useful man. And that is very important to me. And that being useful takes good and bad. And that's kind of the warrior code that I live by. And that also now demands a little bit more structure and patience and a different approach to it. And I think that's what'll take me better into the next 10 years as a business owner, as an athlete, as a partner, as a man, as a friend. And it's a fucking process. It's a process, but I mean, we love the process. I mean, that's why we're here.
Oh, Alex, that's your favorite quote, I feel like. Alex loves the process word.
I don't fucking love the process. Dude. I just know that at the end of the day, that's what'll get you what you want is having a process that you enjoy.
Yep. You gotta love it. I used to listen to that ET speech every fucking training. I had a stream of them. It's like, because he loves the process. The lion doesn't, you know, because the lion likes to hunt. Like I listened to that motherfucker every fucking day when I was a strongman. And I don't mean that sarcastically. Even everyone in the gym was like already saying it. So yes, I am very much that concept to me. And when you're younger, it's all about winning. And I mean that not in age, just experience. And I love to win. But you still have to love the process. Winning should be just a great consequence of your process.
Man, if I had $1 for every time that he said that, I think I would be pretty rich. It's awesome. It's good to see like-minded people saying the same things, that are successful people that say the same things and are saying the same things. Like, it's funny as these podcasts progress and we start to have you know these awesome guests on like you, Michael. Like all of you have such similar, like just same habits, the same processes, the same outcomes. Like because of this process-minded orientation of just, I'm going to keep doing this, and this, and perfect it as I go. And it just leads to a high level of success. So there's definitely obviously something to be said there about that. So yeah, it's great. It's great to hear. I love it. Alex, no, I'm not going to give you any credit for it. I'm going to give it to Michael, not you.
So I don't know. I don't come up with these ideas, Nathan. I just recognize commonalities among really successful people. And
Absolutely.
I go, these are the things they all do.
Yeah.
I don't fucking think.
And that's, you know, it's a good concept to feel and then they become yours, right? Like Bruce Lee. You have 10,000, you know, concepts or weapons, but find one and make it your own. And I'm in the process of doing that. And I've been in alive for quite some time, but I can only imagine. I'm not like a fucking 80-year-old wizard here that's giving you like, but I know that I did the same thing as you. And like I would see things that I would find successful in people. And at first I mimicked, and then I would make my own, and then I would apply it, and then I change it again, and then again and again. And I think as a coach and as a leader, when you apply it to others and you see your students start to mimic and reflect you, that's when you know you've created like an ecosystem, like of culture. And I'm like, okay, I can see what Wes used to look at me, and now I see it in my guys when they say certain things. I'm like, oof. And it's like you're a proud father, and I'm like, okay, but I got to keep evolving because they need to keep learning. And same style.
Yeah, you can't stay in the same place. You get passed up for sure.
Fuck that.
Yeah, I love what you said about patience. I think Alex and I were talking about that actually before you got on here. I was like, because I have a 4-month-old now, and I was talking about like what she's teaching me, and she's teaching me patience. Like this kid, you can't force it to do whatever you want it to do, and you can't coerce it into doing whatever you want it to do. So you just have to be patient and try to just meet their needs and find a way to help them in any way, shape, or form. So that's been my biggest learn from 25 to 30 also, is just patience and trying to understand people. Yeah.
I mean, you know it, like better you than me. I don't want kids, but you know,
I used to be that way.
Yeah, dude, trust me, I get it. I get it. Now at 39, I'm like, well, maybe if I have to have it, which is a lot, bro, because it was like a deal breaker. But
yeah, absolutely.
those are your example. You have a client that pisses you off. 5, 10 years ago, 6, 7 years ago, I'd be like, fuck off. I'm done with you. You just pissed me off. And even credit, I would have certain clients in the gym that didn't really mesh well at first. And others are like, well, maybe they don't really belong here. I'm like, well, believe it or not, this person is probably going to teach me more about coaching than you are, because you're always good. You're great. You listen, you're disciplined. I'm like, as much as I love that and I will respect that, I don't really learn coaching from you. I just apply it. But the one that fucking pisses you off, and I'm not saying to an extent, obviously, the one that tries your patience or questions you in a certain way and is like, you have to kind of take that, can I speak to you for a second kind of thing. And those are the ones, just like your daughter, right? Like, what are you gonna do, punch your daughter? Like, you're gonna be like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna take her for a walk. And it's gonna be the best blessing of your life, because it's gonna be an ever evolving thing. And I view that, I think coaching, not that it's the same thing as parenthood, but it's very similar in its way. It's like we have to see those clients and milk them dry, because those are the ones that are going to teach you patience and what you're really made of. And when you know what happens when you blow up on them, just like a parent, a second later, you're like, God damn it, shouldn't have done that. Because you think, well, what did I accomplish? And that's kind of where I've learned. I mean, I don't know if I consider myself a patient man, but I've definitely become more patient.
Yeah.
Because of my shortcomings as a leader.
Yeah.
It's because of my blowing up on things that pissed me off early on. And now I'm like, sniper rifle, like, don't do that. And I can only assume that parenting is teaching you 101 24/7.
Oh gosh, yeah. I learned so much about my daughter that I can apply to a gym and just start to see the carryover and the crossover. And I'm just like, God dang, okay.
It's not different, man. Listen, right. People laugh and they're like, how do you train your people? I go, like, I train my dogs. And they're like, oh, that's crazy. I'm like, it's not, man. It's called consistency.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really it. Like, you're inconsistent with a human or a dog or a baby, it's your fault.
Yep. Yeah.
And then everything stems from there.
Yeah, that's good. Consistency. Oh man, that word. That's hard for people to understand too. It's like the stuff's not really that difficult. You just have to be consistent with your actions, to be honest.
Yep.
Intentional and consistent.
Yes.
Well,
intentional consistency. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. You got any questions you can drum up for him, Alex? I feel like I'm running dry on the well here with how many questions I've had. But
great, man. You've done very good.
I got one.
I've been on a lot of good podcasts. So.
Switching from sports like strongman and powerlifting, where you're talking about the beast, the animal, the person, the thing that you have to try to tame at times where you actually get to not have to worry about that. How do you use that in bodybuilding? Is that just in the training, you think? Because like the posing and then being on stage and stuff is not necessarily as intense.
So it's a great question. And I just thought about this fucking today. It's great that you asked that, Alex.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, I would think that was my biggest, I don't want to use disappointment, but my biggest grudge in bodybuilding is like, I can't like fuck shit up. Like that same rage that would take a deadlift or a stone that when you're picking something up, like it certainly is not the same as it was in strongman, but I do train really, really hard, and I do sets to failure, and I do pretty significantly heavy weight for sets of 6 to 8, which is very strongman like, right? Because we're a repetition based sport. And it's more of, do I have what it takes to pass my threshold? And although I may not use it for one or a short rep, those last few reps take the same beast. They really, really, really do. And man, there's some, I mean, whether it's light or not, that for me, I've always been a kind of a rage driven athlete. That's just who I am. Not that I let it consume me, but it's the tool set I go to push that limit, is what's getting me to the last few reps of every set, of every failure rep. But at the same time, to be that person, you have to also tame yourself and prepare yourself. You have to kind of hone your weapon, and you have to sharpen your blade and rest and eat and prepare the beast, because no one functions at that level all the time. And when they do, they suck. They really just suck. There's that one guy that has face paint and the WWE guy, but deadlifts 400. You're like, get out of here, guy. Like, all that shit for what? As opposed to that guy steps up there, whether it's 400 or 1,000. You're like, yo, that guy looks dangerous. That girl can fuck shit up. You've seen some girls and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, because they just have this energy. And I've realized that in bodybuilding, when I get on stage, it's day after day after day of honing and catering to this beast, this different type of animal that's going out there to kind of, because when you go out there, you're really just kind of showing off. You're not angry, but I'm gonna bring my own style, my own personality to my training, because I know who I am as a man, as an athlete. Like, I don't necessarily train, like laughing, or I'm a very serious athlete. Okay. If you train with me, we're fucking training. Like, I might joke and shoot the shit, but in our sets, if you're talking shit, I'll be like, get the fuck out of here. Because I'm passionate. I just really want to do well. I think I can bring some of that into my own journey, and use those stuff. So I would say that that's personal. And I don't know if everyone can compete at that level or be that person, but the music that I listen to, the way that I dress, and yeah, I'm a little bit more aesthetic, and I may pose and I may be a little bit more flashy, but the underlying base of what's getting me there is always catering to that beast. And that means if I got to eat and sleep and diet well and let go of alcohol and not socialize as much to let that fire keep burning, so be it.
Do you think that the strength sports background is almost a disadvantage in terms of like your waist being thicker and stuff like that? Because I would think muscle density wise in like limbs, chest, and back, you might have an advantage, right? There's going to be probably more striations and things like that because you've learned how to recruit more of those fibers faster over time.
Yeah.
But if you have a thicker midsection, do you think that'll be kind of like a bit of a challenge trying to get that slimmer?
Yeah, absolutely. Also, being in strength sports and also being 39, as much as I hate using age. I mean, I'm 40 years old, trimming up is, you got 14, 15 years of performance sports under my belt, right? So there might be some limiting factors. I don't know yet. I don't know what my body will look like until I lean out. But I'm also not trying to be, an Olympian or anything that to that level. I don't think I want to be at that level, although my mind may change. So I kind of have to accept that I probably won't have like the classic physique look, like the Chris Bumstead fucking 2-inch waist and just jacked over time, because I started kind of late. But in bodybuilding, at least in the lower levels, I think I can, it's all presentation, right? And I learned this talking to more bodybuilding. It's like, what are you presenting to the crowd? How am I standing? How am I turning? How am I, flexing so that you think that my waist looks thin? And that is when I thought, okay, this is kind of cool, because this is like an art form. This is very much like to me, it's like martial arts. I actually enjoy the difficulty of how hard posing is, because it's really, really hard. But how do you stand and breathe and master your muscle and your body mechanics to present the figure or the physique that is going to win this competition or make you look as aesthetic as possible? And that's cool. So yeah, for sure, I'm gonna have lip plus. So you're probably gonna see a lot of my muscle tears, and I'm sure I know because of my surgeries, there's imbalances and size differences on one side to the next. But overall, I think it's gonna be a pretty cool concept of it. And though it may be limiting, it's not anything I can't just kind of fix with a particular look or a stand or a turn, or as I lean out, like, hey, we need to broaden your shoulders to make you look okay, cool. It's just chip away at the stone, just like if you have a shitty deadlift, get stronger hamstrings and glutes. It's kind of like, even if you were born genetically without really strong legs, you got to work.
How have the last 9 months of training in the more hypertrophy areas kind of changed your way of coaching others as far as like strength sports and stuff like that? Like, do you see a place for some of these things that you're now using in what your athletes are doing to help them with different weak points and things like that?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So there is a lot of mind muscle biomechanic concepts in bodybuilding. As much as we kind of think it, you don't really know it until you're in those trenches. Unfortunately, the overall perspective of bodybuilding is that it's just kind of mindless bullshit. I love the science of bodybuilding. People like Mike Israetel and Feathered. I love that concept of, or Pekulski. Paul is also very good at that too. Like the science of your body and how to optimize and maximize muscle growth through what we understand scientifically, and then applying that in an art form to the individual. Marrying that concept made me kind of fall in love with weight training again, because when you're a strongman or a powerlifter, you really just care about the big movements. Really, you don't care about the incline dumbbell press. You don't care about the one arm rows. Like you kind of don't. After squatting, sets of five with 3, 4, 500, you do lunges very haphazardly. That's our fault as an athlete, not the sport's fault. But when that's all that matters, when every single rep of every single set is a difference between your muscle growing and not growing, it really matters. And that made me fall in love with like mastering the one arm row, mastering machines. I mean, there's a technique to machines. There is a difference between a bodybuilder doing a one arm row or a seated single arm, supine pull than a performance athlete. There is a major difference, and it's going to look sometimes wrong or not inappropriate for the lift, but it grows the muscle in a certain way that's going to be adaptable to the stage, but also for functionality in life. So just being blinded to it, or not, maybe just ignorant or not giving a shit, and then having to do these things so mindfully over and over, thousands of reps a month, you kind of fall in love with that. I can teach this. And so now I'm like a little bit more critical on certain movements. I'm like, hey, press this, turn this, do this. All the stuff that we kind of, bro science, and we kind of brushed aside to fall in love with hip structure and glute strength and spine mechanics and bracing and breathing and neck structure. And then most of these guys can't even teach a bicep curl. Or, hey, this person doesn't want to deadlift 600 pounds. They just want to look good naked. How are you going to grow their glutes? Give me 7 exercises applicable to this person with this hip structure at this age that's going to make them feel good, because not everyone's crazy like us. And so I was like, man, on top of learning more, it also was going to open up an avenue to new clientele, because let's be real, the more lean and the more fucking veins I got running through my face, the more clientele it's going to open up. Unfortunately, we live in an aesthetic world. I can deadlift 600 pounds, but if I have a quad flex, what's going to win? And that's also the business aspect of it. But how to bring me as a strength athlete, a coach, strength and conditioning, and use bodybuilding to apply to my culture and my concepts. So that's what I'm doing right now. And it's certainly reignited a love of lifting again. Like I can look at a bench press, I can fix your fucking bench press in 5 minutes. It's not a problem. I mean, unless you're something really crazy. But trying to make that person work mentally, and then using the muscle groups and finding out what's going on and how to develop the triceps in several ways and actually work out the triceps and not just trying to push a stack. I've kind of fallen in love with that again, even though it kind of started to simmer over the last couple of years. But it's been pretty cool.
That the bodybuilding realm's not something I want to get into. I'm not gonna lie, it's not something that I want to venture into. But I have a huge respect for people that do it, though. Holy cow, the dedication.
I didn't. You know what? Same, man. And I'm not saying you should or that you will.
Mm-hmm.
I always liked. I mean, bodybuilding was my era. Like that's the only thing that I grew up on, is watching like Coleman and Heath and Cutler. It's Yates, Arnold, obviously. So size and that prowess was always kind of a big deal. I was just more of a martial artist. But and again, I have this pocket of time in my life where I can. I don't have kids. I don't my full commitment is to my gym. I have my partner, she's a fucking amazing. She can really help me out with this stuff. My gym, my clan, my friends, they respect my lifestyle. They're not like, "Come on, pussy, drink another beer." They're like, "Oh, Mike's training? Cool, man. Hey, you want some food?" Like I'm past that age where I have to kind of battle people into understanding that I'm taking this seriously. So it's like almost like the stars are aligning for me to kind of push this, because it is It is pretty fucking selfish and time consuming.
If you're a kid and you're in your early 20s, have that mindset that Mike just talked about. Find a group of people that aren't pushing the parties and the beer and that.
Good luck.
Yeah, I mean, good luck finding it, but like,
You know what it is, and I'll tell you what, man, and I'll tell you what, Nate. You have to make that fucking food.
yeah, that's true.
There is this concept on, I don't know, you know, it's the psychology of social media and just general culture that's like, oh, if you're bad for my vibes or you're bad for my energy, I dump you. And I'm like, man, if that was the case, I would have very little friends or I would be friends with very little people. Because at some time, somewhere in my life, I was probably a bad friend to a lot of my friends, whether I was angry or drunk or too disciplined or distant or mean. And if they would have just dumped me because I was bad for their vibes, I would have evolved with them. I would have grown more mature or experiences. So I tell a lot of my guys, I'm like I said, that one friend or friends that challenge you are probably going to be your best friends because lead them, like grow some accountability. Don't just run away from the challenge of society and psychology of people that you don't like. On the contrary, sit with your enemies, right? Like that's a Machiavellian concept. If you only want to see with your fucking ass kissers as leaders, you're not going to evolve. And I made my friends understand how important this is for me. I taught them. I sat with them. They train with me now. They see me eat. They seen my injuries, my surgeries. Like before social media, you had to like stand by me and see my passion, the tears, the fucking energy, the yelling, the fucking eating ramen noodles for 5 fucking years to make this gym come off the ground. You have to develop this culture. And I tell that to a lot of young people, men specifically, because I train a lot of young men too. I'm like, you have to develop your circle. And you know what? There is a time and a place to have scumbag friends because I can be that friend too. But you have to show them, you have to put them in their place. You have to stand up to them and be like, yo, I'm fucking taking this seriously, man. And you need to respect that. And that's how you have to do it, as opposed to, no, I'm just going to go home now. Like you're not really developing those skill sets because that's the world. And you know this as a gym owners and coaches, there's a lot of motherfuckers out there, dude. A lot of assholes. They'll steal your clients. They talk shit on you. They want to, take your concept. They want to shit on your gym. And you got to be like, what's up, man? How are you? You want to sit down with me, have a beer? You want to talk these things out? You got to protect your stance too. So some of the people that have pissed me off the most in this community have pushed me the most and have probably made me way better than the guys that are like, Mike, you're so awesome. First of all, I'm like, T, don't say that. And B, thank you very much. But yeah, man, I tell that to a lot of young guys. I'm like, yeah, bro, very hard for a young person to find those circles, but develop them, find them, dig for them, like teach your friend, bring them with you so they can puke all over themselves and be like, yo, man, you're crazy. Like, yeah. So next time I'm telling you I'm not going to get drunk, you know why? They're like, yeah, man, fuck that. That easy.
Yeah, like be a leader. Like actually be a leader.
Be a leader.
Be accountable. Be a leader. We need some more men like that. That's for sure. They're
man, dude,
slowly disappearing in the world around us. That's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all over the place, and it's because of that, right? We're getting as a culture. I'll say myself, all ages, we're marrying ourselves to complacency. I'm guilty. I mean, I don't even go shopping anymore. Everything's ordered online. It's fucking laziness. I'm guilty. But as far as like socially, I talk to my nephew all the time. I'm like, push yourself, go talk to that motherfucker. Like, be uncomfortable. And this is going to pay dividends in your 30s where, being shy is not cool. It's not productive. It's not helpful. It's not useful. You're not a useful man. You're not a useful person if you're always quiet. And like, how will you protect and stand up for the people you love if you always practice to keep your mouth shut? That's crazy to me. And I learned that, and I teach that in the gym. I don't, like I said, and I always say this, I'm not trying to teach or make good men. I'm trying to make useful fucking warriors, like leaders, men and women. Like, if you don't like something, learn it. And I always tell the girls and the guys in my gym, I go, if you can fucking stand up to me with some real shit, you're going to be okay in life. You're going to be pretty okay on the average person. Yeah. Because it's hard to stand up to a coach.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a daughter, but I don't want to shelter her from any of that stuff. It's like, no, like if she has real struggles and real problems, teach her to work through them. Like teach her to be accountable for her crap. Don't don't let her, just don't coddle her. Like, don't take her in and just pat her and say everything's all fine. Because I had a conversation with a client about this morning. Like, the world's not a safe place anymore. It's not a nice place. It's not, you can't just shelter your kids. You're going to have to teach them how to work through this stuff. And us as people, I think that's why I like training. I think it teaches me how to do some hard stuff and like work through some hard stuff. And it's like, man, I don't like this crap, but I'm going to do it. And I'm going to show myself that I can do it every day and be disciplined to do it. But I don't think a lot of people have that in their life. They don't have that accountability. So
No, they've never been taught or exposed themselves. I mean, I think that's kind of our gift and our job as coaches. You know, everyone that walks in that fucking door is an opportunity for you to open the door for them. You know, you can only go so far, obviously. It's not like we're like directly mentors, although we may become some. But if they choose to train you, it's I always say this, it's like the responsibility of responsibility. I mean, that's what keeps me alive. And it's like, okay, well, you know, and I always tell my guys, dude, I'm like, I don't want you to be anything like me because I'm not a good man. So it's your job to be better. And I'm not teaching you, as much as I'm teaching you what to do, I'm also showing you what not to do. And that's the reality of the fucking world, because there's also too many people wearing capes where I'm like, okay, I'm like, you shouldn't be doing that, guy. Why you shut the fuck up? I know you. Don't say that. You know?
too many people with a platform now. That's the problem.
Bro, yeah, it's a whole other monster. I'm like, I don't think you should be saying that.
That's tough in Florida too. There's a lot of people with a lot of platforms in Florida, I'm sure. And it's a very political filled world, especially Miami. That's for sure.
Oh, it's everywhere, man.
Yeah.
Like, Florida's a very strength driven. I mean, like the Midwest, like Ohio, tons of people there. You know, Florida's out of the South, probably one of the most influential states in strength. Period. It's powerlifting, strongman, anything. And it's not that. It's just you have to adhere to yourself, whether it's good or bad. Just fucking be yourself until you go out. And I tell that people all the time. I'm like, yeah, I know there's motherfuckers out there that don't like me, and there's the guys out there that I don't like either. But just be true to you, man. That's it. You know, and also carry that energy in real life, right? Like when you see somebody, be that guy. You know, I'm not I grew up in the '80s, dog. Like everything wasn't on this fucking phone, you know. So that's old man talk shit, you know.
No, not at all. You're going strong.
Yeah.
It's not even a question. You're doing some great things, that's for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, Alex, do you have any other questions? I'm chopped out. I got nothing.
I do not have any other questions at this time.
Oh, awesome.
Well,
that was really good, though. I really enjoyed those questions. I think it opened up a lot of conversation pieces.
Yeah, Mike, thank you so much. I appreciate your time and your energy and your efforts as a strength coach and all that you do and give to the strength and conditioning community. And thank you for giving us your time today. We really appreciate it.
Oh, man. Honestly, and I don't mean to sound cliche, man. It's my honor. I think that I never overlook these things. You guys have a bright future ahead of you. I hope that, you know, obviously we can exchange ideas, and I've learned a lot here myself. But whatever you guys need, or, you know, it's always cool to shoot the shit with other like-minded people. And, you know, there's a lot of years left ahead of you to deal with a lot of things coming up. And, you know, the best thing you can do, I always say this, man, it's just, like I said 5 minutes ago, is be true to yourself. And even if you evolve, it's okay to change your fucking mind. That's something that I did not do when I was young. I was like, I'm not changing because people are going to see that as weakness, and I'm just going to be this guy all the time. And trust me that gets old and people see right through you. And then I'm like, when I change my mind, I'm like, yeah, you know what? Change my mind. And it was like, oh, but I go, but what? Example, bodybuilding, right? They're like, oh, but Mike, you're strong, man. I go, am I? I'm a fucking athlete. They're like, oh, okay, yeah. I go, no, I just want to do it. Okay. As opposed to, I'm a strong man. I'm never going to do this shit, which I used to be. But look how much of this conversation would have been cut short if I still had that mentality. So,
yeah.
Anyway, people are listening, and you guys and stuff, it's like, be true to yourself, man, good or bad. And if it's okay to change your mind, and then admit it. Yeah, I changed my mind, or I fucked up. God, how hard is that? But we're working on that. We're working on that part.
That's it. That's everybody. That's everybody.
Yeah, I'm working on that part.
That's awesome.
I
Well,
appreciate you guys.
if you guys have listened to this far and you've made it to this point, we'll link Mike's socials in the description there, so you can go check out all the cool stuff he's doing on Instagram. We'll have to have you back on another time for sure. We'll get you back on here. So
I would love it, man. Thank you. I would love that.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day and have a wonderful Wednesday.
Yep.
See you
Thanks, man.
guys.
Appreciate it.
Cheers, man. Thanks, Nate. Thanks, Alex.
Yep.
Yep.